Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving deep into the legal and historical precedents of Islamic taxation. We're going to remain completely objective here as we explore some really fascinating ancient texts. We want to see exactly how historical jurisprudence addresses, well, some incredibly complex modern questions. If you've ever wondered how centuries-old legal frameworks can actually adapt to contemporary society, you are absolutely in the right place. So let's just get right into it. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with a modern tax proposition, then journey into the historical precedent of the Bani Taghlib. From there, we'll look at the scholarly consensus, explore the ethical framework for protecting non-Muslim citizens, and finally, wrap up with equalizing the tax. Section 1. A modern tax proposition. Sheikh Abu Zahrah's 1947 proposal. Okay, let's kick things off by traveling back a bit, to 1947. A very prominent Islamic scholar named Sheikh Abu Zahrah presented this groundbreaking proposal to the Egyptian House of Representatives. His whole goal was to build a framework for genuine social solidarity across all citizens, literally regardless of their faith. To pull this off, he posed a really captivating question. If the traditional Jizya tax is no longer obliged by the state, can the government simply replace it with the Zakaah tax upon non-Muslims? To ensure pure mathematical equality across the board? It's a pretty bold question, right? Mainly because it challenges a very traditional view of exactly how Islamic wealth taxes are applied.
Now, to truly grasp the weight of this proposal, we've got to define our core terms. On one side, we have the Jizya. Historically, this was a tax paid by non-Muslim citizens, known as aludiz dhimma, to the Islamic State. It was basically a contract based on mutual consent and treaty, providing state protection and an exemption from military service. On the flip side, we have the Zakaah. This is an obligatory almsgiving wealth tax levied strictly upon Muslims. And Zakaah, it isn't just a civic duty. It is literally a core pillar of the Islamic faith. So Abu Zahrah is basically asking, can we merge the civic function of the Jizya with the financial structure of the Zakaah?
Section 2. The Bani Taghlib Precedent, a journey into historical case law.
So, to see if Abu Zahrah's modern proposal actually has valid legal roots, we need to step back in time. Looking at early Islamic diplomacy, we see this fascinating evolution of tax treaties. Back in the Prophet Muhammad's era, we see a fixed treaty with the people of Najran for exactly 2,000 khula, which is a type of garment annually. Decades later, around 89 Hijri, Al-Walid made a treaty with the non-Arab Al-Jarajama in the Levant, agreeing to tax their trade exactly the same way Muslims were taxed. But the major, undeniable turning point in Islamic case law, that happened right in the middle of all this, during the era of the second Caliph Umar, with a really powerful tribe known as the Bani Taghlib.
You see, the Bani Taghlib were a proud, fierce, and militarily powerful Christian Arab tribe living right near Roman territories. When Umar invited them to pay the traditional jizya, they flat out refused. The term jizya just felt degrading to them. They actually declared, "We are Arabs. Take from us like you take from amongst yourselves with the naming of Sadaqah." They demanded to pay their tax under the banner of Sadaqah, which, by the way, is synonymous with Zakaah, just like the Muslims. They were totally willing to pay the money, but that specific terminology was a massive sticking point for their tribal pride.
Initially, Umar held firm. He refused to take Sadaqah from non-Muslims, mostly because it's a term traditionally reserved for Islamic worship. Well, the tribe was so stubborn they actually threatened to cross the border and align themselves with the enemy Roman forces. Enter a man named Nu'man bin Zurah. He gave some urgent realpolitik advice to the Caliph, warning him, Bani Taghlib are Arabs and they possess force. Take from them with the naming of Sadaqah, like the naming given to that which is taken from the Arabs. He realized that, hey, alienating this powerful tribe over a mere word, that could result in a massive strategic loss for the state.
Recognizing that strategic benefit and the broader public interest, Umar struck a brilliant compromise. He agreed to entirely drop the term jizya and rename the tax to Sadaqah just to satisfy the tribe's honor. In exchange, by mutual consent, they agreed to pay double the standard Zakaah rate. By doing this, Umar established a massive legal precedent. He proved that the name of the tax and even the rate of the tax are not rigidly fixed by divine text. They can actually be adjusted based purely on mutual agreement and state interest.
Section 3. Consensus of the Scholars. Establishing the legal weight.
Now, historical anecdotes are great, but in Islamic jurisprudence, legal weight is everything. It's absolutely crucial to understand how later Islamic jurists, the fuqaha, interpreted this specific diplomatic compromise. Because absolutely none of the Prophet's companions opposed Omar's decision at the time, it formed what is known as an ijma, an ironclad legal consensus. This precedent was then championed and codified by the absolute titans of Islamic law. We're talking Abu Hanifa, Abu Yusuf, Ash-Shafi'i, and many others. It wasn't just brushed off as a one-off mistake. It was strictly codified as valid law.
So, the crucial takeaway here is that they all agreed the renaming was perfectly permissible. However, as with all complex law, the legal schools did differ slightly on the administrative mechanics behind the scenes. The Hanafi and Hanbali view argues that if you agree to tax them based on Zakaah, the funds collected are treated mathematically and legally under the exact conditions of Zakaah. Conversely, the Shafi view suggests a more technical approach. They say the tax is renamed to Zakaah for the citizens, but internally, the state must administer it strictly under the conditions of Jizya. But despite this little technical nuance, the overarching consensus remains rock solid. The state has the flexibility to change the name and the structure of the tax.
Section 4. Protecting non-Muslim citizens. The ethical framework of Al-Dim.
So you might be wondering, where exactly does this legal flexibility and willingness to compromise actually come from? Well, it stems directly from the strict overarching principles regarding the ethical treatment of non-Muslim citizens. Islamic jurisprudence isn't just a tax code. It lays down severe social prohibitions. For instance, it is absolutely prohibited to backbite a non-Muslim citizen. Some jurists have even explicitly stated that the oppression of a dhimmi is actually considered worse than oppressing a Muslim. On top of that, a Muslim calling a non-Muslim citizen derogatory names warrants discretionary legal punishment by the state, which is known as ta'zir. Their dignity and their rights are fiercely protected.
And this absolute protection is anchored in a terrifyingly powerful warning, one that brilliantly illustrates the gravity of the social contract. The Prophet Muhammad himself stated, "Indeed, verily whoever oppresses a person under covenant, lessens from him, burdens him above his capabilities, or takes something from him without sincere motivations, then I will be his opponent on the day of judgment." I mean, that serves as the ultimate, inescapable deterrent against state oppression. It explains exactly why Caliph Umar was so willing to listen to the Bani Taghlib's grievances and adapt the tax structure. The state is literally terrified of being deemed an oppressor.
Section 5. Equalizing the tax, the pragmatic conclusion.
Let's move to our final point and see how this all builds back to our very first idea. Bringing it all back to Sheikh Abu Zahrah's modern proposition from 1947, we can clearly see how the tax can legally and historically be equalized today. If it serves the public interest, the state can levy the exact same tax rate on both groups by mutual consent. The burden is completely equalized. The only real difference is the internal motivation. Muslims pay the zakat purely as an ibadah, an indispensable act of worship to God. Meanwhile, non-Muslims pay the exact same amount as a dariba, a standard civic tax based on mutual consent with the state. The result? Pure equality is achieved without compromising the theological boundaries of either group.
This remarkable piece of case law regarding Umar and the Bani Taghlib leaves us with a fascinating final thought. If historical precedent allows for such profound flexibility, negotiation, and adaptation through mutual consent regarding something as fundamental as taxation, what other historical compromises remain undiscovered in Islamic case law? It truly challenges the notion of a rigid, unyielding legal system, showing instead a dynamic framework built on social harmony and public interest. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.